Hi, welcome to CU Denver's Green Business MOOC class. I'm John Bird. I'm coordinating the program, and I'll be teaching several of the lectures. Today I want to start in this very first course by talking about what sustainability is. That'll give us a foundation that we can use through the rest of the program. Before I do that, I want to talk about the name of the class. We talk about green business, green, right? And that suggests just the environment. But in fact, we could have called this course sustainable business or socially responsible business, because we're going to be looking not only at environmental, but also at social impacts of business. Hopefully, as you go through the program, you're going to learn the tools and the concepts that'll help you make your employer or the company you work for more sustainable. If you're starting a company, you'll be able to start fresh and make it as sustainable as possible. And if you're a consumer or investor, you'll be able to make better decisions in terms of the products you buy and the companies you buy them from. So let's begin. So what do we mean by green business or sustainable business? I think most people would immediately think about polluting less, saving energy, reducing raw material use, and recycling. If you thought about it a little longer, you'd also consider taking care of employees probably, and taking care of the communities that the company operates in. More generally, we could talk about taking care of stakeholders. Now, stakeholders is a huge group. It's anyone or any entity that can affect the company or can be affected by the company. Here's a list. So employees, obviously, they work for the company. If they do a good job, the company prospers. They depend on the company for wages. Customers, they depend on the company to make good, durable, safe products. Suppliers, they depend on the company to pay its bills on time. The government has a couple roles. One is they collect taxes, and so they depend on companies in order to finance government operations. But governments also regulate in a lot of dimensions what companies can do. So there's occupational safety and health, there's environmental regulations, there's trade regulations and commerce regulations, and so on. The environment, it's not actually in anyone, but as we've already mentioned, the environment can be impacted certainly by the actions of a company, and it can affect a company. And we're going to see that in a number of ways when we look at climate change. Communities. Communities depend on companies for jobs, but they also depend on companies to behave safely and comply with laws. Banks and lenders. These are stakeholders in the sense that they make money available for the company to grow, but they also expect that that money is going to be repaid on time and in full. And finally, there's shareholders. Shareholders are often thought of as the only important stakeholder. In fact, shareholder primacy, which much of capitalism is based on and a lot of corporate law supports, suggests that companies should only be operated to benefit shareholders. That is, profits are the most important aspect of a company's activities. Well, in sustainable business, we take a much broader view. And a kind of a nice way to think about it is with the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps are profit, planet, and people. Planet is the environment. People is the social side of business, so employees and non-shareholder stakeholders. Then there's profit. Now, we don't want companies to be greedy, but a company has to earn a profit. A company has to earn a profit. If a company fails, then all of its good deeds towards the planet and people go away. In order to be sustainable, a company has to be financially viable. So we cannot ignore profit, and we aren't going to criticize profit. That's part of the package. But what sustainable business does is it looks for that little intersection where profit, the planet, and people overlap. And it's here that business can find choices or make decisions that are profitable while helping people and the planet. So far, we've talked about current impact or impact today. But there's a time dimension to sustainability that we need to always think about. We make decisions today, but we have to consider the impact that those decisions are going to have on the future. 5 years, 25 years, 50 years in the future. We expect a company to be in business for a long, long time. So decisions made today are going to have an influence in the future, and we want to make sure those aren't negative influences. There's another way that sustainability differs from business as usual. Typically, companies consider only what goes on within their boundaries or their borders. So within this yellow square, inputs arrive, the company does stuff with them, and then they sell their products. Beyond the yellow square, upstream on the input side or downstream on the consumer side, companies aren't very involved. But we know that there's huge impacts extracting raw materials, refining raw materials, building subcomponents in factories all over the world. A lot of these impacts are called externalities, and we'll talk about those in a video or two. The point here is that if a company is going to be sustainable, it has to consider where its raw materials are coming from. Similarly, we know that consumer use in the disposal of products can have an impact. Consumers use a lot of power to power computers or cars, and when things are disposed of, we have a real problem sometimes. So a company, to be sustainable, needs to consider the entire life cycle of its products. This is called systems thinking or life cycle thinking. Let's review really quickly. Sustainable business differs from business as usual because it considers people, the planet, and profits. It also considers the long-term impact of decisions. And it considers the entire life cycle of a product, not just that little portion when the raw materials are being turned into a product in the company's factories. Sometime, I think with your help after this course, we hope that sustainable business will become business as usual. That's our goal. There's a little assignment for this week in which I hope that you will think about what sustainability means. We're going to have you create your own personal statement of sustainable business. And then we'll have some of your colleagues look at it to make sure you've touched on the idea of impact and long-term decisions and life cycle. Thanks for being in the class. I hope you get a lot out of it.